Well, good evening. I want to welcome you to our town hall here at what was formerly known as the Woods Church, our Chesterfield campus, and we're excited for what we're going to talk about tonight and been looking forward to this day for several weeks now as we have the opportunity to unveil our new name and cast vision for what we know God has called us to in the future. And I will admit that the past several months, right, take this whole church stuff outside of it, right, for all of us, the past several months have been challenging for all of us. Tonight was even challenging because for most of you, maybe you don't know, but at about 4:30 this afternoon, maybe 4 o'clock this afternoon, the power went out. And so we were afraid, will we even be able to have this? But the power came back on at 5 o'clock, and so now we're here ready to go. But this decision to become our own church in the middle of this pandemic, right? That was a challenging decision in itself. But can I just tell you that all along the way, that God has been so good. And I want to tell you thank you for so many of you and your support over these months and just the encouragement for the prayers that you've offered up for me and for our staff and our team here. And you have been so encouraging, and I don't know where we'd be without so many of you that have just continued to support us and pray for us along the way. And so I would encourage you that if you have questions at some point throughout the night, we'll address those a little bit later in our town hall. And so as you're watching along, you can put some of those questions in the comments of the video, and we'll try to get to all of those as we can, but feel free to ask questions. If we don't answer something, don't feel like you can't reach out and ask a question. We want to do our best to answer those. But see, first things first. You know, as a staff and our transition team, our board, we talked about, okay, God, if we're moving forward with you, God, if we want your presence moving with us, what does that look like? You know, what is the vision of what we've been and what we're becoming? What does that look like, God? And so there was a lot of prayer that went on in those early days. We sat down with our staff and with our transition team, people from our Chesterfield campus that we prayed through. God, we want the right people on the team that are going to lead us through this season. And it was interesting, we started kind of a text chain with the leadership team, with that transition team, and just said, hey, as God's leading you, we want you to just put what God is laying on your hearts and maybe some names that you're thinking of for what we could be, something behind the vision for what we know God is calling us to be. And so over the course of a couple of weeks, we continued to text back and forth and just relay what God had been laying on our hearts in our quiet time for what we knew God would be kind of leading us to in the future. And at one point in those text messages back and forth, one of our transition team, they threw out the verse Ezekiel chapter 47, right? And I doubt many of you have spent a ton of time in the book of Ezekiel. But what we know about Ezekiel was a prophet. And God was speaking through Ezekiel to the people of Israel. And at first Ezekiel, he laid out God's punishment for the people. Once again, they had been disobedient to God and what God was desiring from them in his relationship with them. And so God used Ezekiel to pronounce what God was going to do, that they were going to be in captivity and some of the difficulties that they were going to face because of their disobedience. But as you get to the end of the book of Ezekiel, you see a little bit different picture. That God once again turns his face back to his people. He wants to restore them. And in chapter 47 of Ezekiel, I love the imagery because at this point, God speaking through Ezekiel is saying, here's what I want to do. As your God, as the creator, here's what your future looks like. And as Ezekiel lays these out in chapter 47, verses 1 and 2, this is what he says. Now he brought me back to the temple. Ezekiel speaking, God bringing him back to the temple. He said, I saw water pouring out from under the temple porch to the east. He says the temple faced east. The water poured from the south side of the temple, south of the altar. He then took me out through the north gate and led me around the outside to the gate complex on the east. Ezekiel said the water was gushing from under the south front of the temple. And so there's this picture of this water flowing from the temple, this place where God's presence would dwell. And again, he's painting a picture, not just of a future for the people of Israel, but he's painting a picture of God's kingdom. A picture of what God's kingdom would one day be when things are finally restored to the way he intended them to be from the very beginning. And this water that was flowing from the temple, from the presence of God, it was not just any water, because look at what it says in verse 8 and 10. Ezekiel says that God told me that this water flows east. It descends to the Arabah and then into the sea of stagnant waters, water that's dead, that's stagnant. There's no life there. It says when it empties into those waters, into that sea, he says, it will become fresh. And I love these next few words. He says, wherever this river flows, where there was no life, Ezekiel says, there will be life, that life will flourish. He says, great schools of fish, because the river is turning the salt sea into fresh water. And I love the last line. He says, where the river flows, life abounds. He's saying that areas that were once dead and lifeless, this river that is flowing from the temple, that is flowing from God's presence, wherever that river touches, life abounds. And again, through Ezekiel, God was painting a picture of his future kingdom, what he would one day do. And again, he says, wherever the river flows, life will flourish. Wherever the river flows, life abounds. And can I just tell you that we've seen God use us as a Woods Church Chesterfield campus to do that very thing. I mean, I think about several years ago when we started our school partnerships. When we stepped out on faith and we weren't sure what that might look like. We know that there's kind of that barrier between church and state, and we never wanted to cross any kind of line, but we knew God was calling us to be more than just a gathering on a Sunday morning, but to invest in our community, to move outside of these walls and to impact people that might not normally walk through the doors of our church. And so we took that step of faith. And God has been unbelievable that we've seen God use us, as Ezekiel put it, to bring life, to be like a river flows from this place into our community where life abounds. As we've continued over the years to work with our community, to serve alongside some of our community leaders, we have seen life flourish because of the willingness of so many of you that have said, you know what, God, I want you to use me. God, I want you to use my gifts and my abilities. I want you to take me where you want me to go. I want you to use me to touch the lives of other people. And we've seen things over the years like our Feed the Bay backpack program. I mean, it is literally, to me, amazing what God has done through that backpack program and the generosity of so many of you. That literally us, not a huge church by any means, have an unbelievable footprint of serving in our community. That this backpack program, because of you, we're feeding over 300 kids during the school year, every weekend. That's not just an accident. That's absolutely God using us to bring life to the world around us. The mentorship program that we've had at Middle School South, the after-school program that we've had at McConn's Elementary. It's through those things and through so many of you that have said, you know what, God, I want you to use me, that we've seen life abound. We've seen lives change. And so as a church, I just want to tell you, we're going to continue to do that. I want to continue to see those partnerships and other partnerships grow. For us to develop new partnerships in our community where we're partnering with other organizations that are doing kingdom work so that we can see life abound in new areas. To, as Ezekiel put it, to see life flourish in our communities, in our neighborhoods, in the places that God takes us each and every day. And so I know, because I've seen it, that over the years that God has used you. God has used our church. And you have in so many ways left a mark on so many lives. On so many ways left a mark on so many families. And I've always had this quote in the back of my head. I read a book years ago, early on in ministry. And in the book, it was interesting, they posed a question. That as a church, would your community miss you if you disappeared? That if all of a sudden your church was no longer where it is, would your community even notice? And because of you and so many of you that have been so generous and willing to serve and willing to step out on faith, I know that this community would miss you. I know that this community, there would be a hole in this community because of all that you continue to do, because of how you're generous, how you're willing to serve, how you're willing to step up and step out on faith in so many occasions. I mean, we've seen those that are broken, they found healing because of what you've done. We found people that have been disconnected have found connection within the life of this church. We've seen marriages, families, relationships restored. You have left a mark on so many lives, on so many households, on so many students and so many children. And many of those people have never necessarily even walked through the doors of our church, but we've always been willing to go where they're at. And let me just tell you, that has to continue. That has to continue to be part of who we are as what was once the Woods Church Chesterfield campus. And it's my hope then that as we have lived faithfully as God's people, that this body of believers in this community where God has placed us, that long after we're gone, that we would have made an impact for God's kingdom that would be seen for generations to come. And as we kind of talk through names and talk through, okay, what does this look like? Because we wanted our name to mean something, to have some identity about who we are, what we've done, and what we want to see God do in the future. There's a word that kind of sums all of this up. And the word is this. It's a watermark. And see, a watermark is a mark that shows a level to which water has risen. You know, that mark that is left behind after the water has receded. A watermark is a mark that indicates a continual presence of water at a certain level that water leaves long after it's gone. And you know what I know? That God wants us to continue to leave our mark on people, on the lives, on the homes, on the marriages, on the families, the neighborhoods, and the workplaces in which we live, in which He's placed us. God has called us to leave His mark wherever He takes us, to leave a watermark, to see lives flourish for God's purposes in God's kingdom. And so today, I'm making it official that we're going to move forward with the name, with the vision behind what it is to be Watermark Church. And so my hope and my prayer for those that you call this church your home is that you would be marked by the presence of the Holy Spirit in your life. And that you would each and every day, that you would seek to leave a mark. Seek to leave a watermark on the lives of others. Seek to leave a watermark in the community around you. And I think about all that's kind of brought us to this point, the journey that's led us here, you know, as we once were the Woods Church Chesterfield campus, but if you know the story, long before that, we were Anchor Bay Church of the Nazarene. And I'm so thankful for all those that have been faithful over the years. I think back to, you know, when I came on as campus pastor here, and Pastor Tim Gaucher, he had the faith to say, you know what, we want to see God, what He's doing here in Warren, we want to see that happen in another community. And so by faith, they worked with the existing community that was here as Anchor Bay Church of the Nazarene, and planted the Woods Church, our Chesterfield campus. And then after him, it was Pastor David, and David had that same vision that they planted our St. Clair Shores campus and allowed us to refine what it meant to be a multi-site church. And then, you know, recently as John has taken over that lead pastor role for the Woods Church and his faithfulness to what God has called him to, that I know we're here because of their faithfulness, because of God leading them along the way. I know that we're here because of so many that over the years have given, have prayed, have served, and allowed God to use them in unbelievable ways. So I tell you, even though the last several months has been certainly busy and stressful, I am so excited for what God has in store for us. And so what I want to do just right now, I want to introduce you to the team that has been involved in this process with us from our Chesterfield campus, now Watermark Church. This is our Watermark Church transition team, and I'm going to bring each one of them on stage, introduce them. I'm not going to make them say anything, but I just want you to know a little bit about who's been behind the scenes. So I'm going to invite Janelle to join me on stage. So Janelle and her husband Matt, they've been a part of our church for about 8 years now. They've served in countless ways, especially in some of the things that we've done in the community. Her and Matt, they've served I remember at the end of the school year last year, we were doing temperature checks for the school district, helping out there. And there was Matt and there was Janelle helping out and showing up every morning. And Janelle and her girls have also served in kids ministry. And so I've been so thankful for Janelle's influence and Matt's influence in the life of our church. And so Janelle's part of this team as we move forward. And so part of the reason I'm even introducing the team to you is so that if there are some issues, you know who to ask and have some questions, that these people will be here for you because they are integrally involved in who we are as a church heading forward. So Janelle, thank you. I'm going to invite Mike on the stage. We're being social distance. We're practicing social distancing. That's why we're taking our time with this. So this is Mike. And Mike, he was part of the old guard. Mike was part of Anchor Bay Church long before I ever get here. And I don't want to say that Mike's the oldest one of the group, but his wisdom, he's been a part of this community for such a long time. And personally, I don't know where I'd be without Mike and his wife Terry and their investment in our church and willing to do everything. I mean, Mike serves on the worship team, playing bass. He's on the usher team and on the security team, and he's done pretty much everything else around here and leading a small group in so many different ways. And so I've been so thankful for Mike and Terry and their involvement over the years. And so Mike is part of this team. I felt like it was so important that he be with us as we move forward in this transition. So thank you, Mike. I'm going to invite Tyler. And many of you probably know Tyler. He's on stage. Every once in a while, we give him the opportunity to talk, and he's always got a lot to say, but I've been so thankful for Tyler that Tyler came out to our Chesterfield campus shortly after I came on. He defected from our Warren campus, and we've been so thankful to have him and his wife Rachel as part of our church. Early on, Tyler jumped into student ministry and led that area as a volunteer. He's been teaching on Sunday mornings. He's involved in the praise team, and I felt like it was important to have his influence in the life of our church as we move forward. And so, again, I've been so thankful for Tyler and just his willingness to serve over these years. And we have one more, and she couldn't be here with us tonight. Tyler, you can go ahead. Adrian, she's hopefully online. I said, hey, why don't you throw something online, let everybody know you're here. So Adrian and her husband, Justin, they've been a part of our church for about 5 years now, maybe 6 years or so. But they are super involved in so many different areas. Adrian leads a mom's group, and Justin leads, if you watched our service this morning, you know that Justin leads a small group of 6th grade boys. And he has 14 boys, 6th grade boys in his small group. I pray for him every single day because I don't know how anyone can do that, but he is an unbelievable man of God, and he does that. But we're excited to have Adrian on this transition team as we move forward as well. And again, I'll kind of pause. If you have questions, don't hesitate to throw some of those questions on the comment section. They're going to text me those so I can answer them as they come about. So that's our transition team. And I just want to update you on what we've done so far, some of the things that we've been working on, many of the things behind the scenes. We are official with the state of Michigan as Watermark Church. We are official with the IRS. That one was really important as Watermark Church, as well as with the Church of the Nazarene. So we've put all those things into place, and all those details have been taken care of. We've been working on a few committees that will help inform our church transition team, this board, of things that need to happen when it comes to finances, when it comes to building, when it comes to some of the areas in our church that they can have some say, have some influence. And so we've been working on putting those committees together. And what you're watching right now, this online service, if you remember, as a Chesterfield campus, we had no online service. But on July 19th, we started up with kind of a live recorded service here at our Chesterfield campus. And I just have to pause for a moment and say that all of this is possible. I'd love to take credit, but I can't because I don't know any of it. But Derek, our worship leader, I cannot tell you the countless hours that he has been here late at night. We've been up in the attic of the sanctuary running cords and lines and all kinds of crazy stuff. He has done so much work so that we can do exactly what we're doing now, so that you can be there and we can be here. And I got to tell you that I don't know where we'd be without him, that all this has been his baby. He has attacked it. He has put it together. He has done an incredible job of making sure that whether you're there and we're here, that we have this opportunity to still gather together. And so I'm just so thankful for him. Now, as we move forward, I want to tell you that Feed the Bay will continue. The Feed the Bay has been an incredible program in our community that feeds kids on the weekends during the school year. That will continue. Our school partnerships with McConce Elementary and Middle School South and some of the things that we do with Middle School North, those things will continue as well. But as I mentioned a few moments ago, we want to develop new partnerships. We want to develop new partnerships with groups that are in our community, organizations that are in our community, so that we can continue to have an impact, so that life can abound in new areas and God can do new things through us as a church. Now we have some roles to fill, staff-wise. Now that we're separating from our Warren campus, and there were many roles that our Warren campus, their staff, as we would call central services, took care of and did an incredible job to make sure that we communicated well, to make sure that our website and a lot of those details were all taken care of. And so now that we're moving into this new season, we have some roles to fill. And so I wanted to take a moment and just allow Tyler to come up and explain a little bit of kind of what we're doing and that process behind the scenes. So Tyler, would you join me on stage?
Yeah, so there's this awesome opportunity we have now, not just with the change of our church and all of those different things, but we have this opportunity now, as Laren said, to look for these new opportunities to get involved in with our community. I mean, we've had so much success working with the schools and with the community, and we've had such an impact, and we've left our mark there. But the amazing thing about God is that he's not done, ever. He's not done with us. He's not given us his full vision. He's got next steps ahead of us. And so one of the most exciting things that I think we get to do as a transition team working along with Laren and the staff is to look for additional staff members to join our team and to continue pouring into that vision that God has for us. As one thing we know is that there are definitely more areas in our community that we want to leave our mark on, that we want to continue to allow that life to flourish, that we want to continue to allow God to move in. And so as a transition team, again, working with Laren and the staff, we're looking at candidates coming in order to fill some positions within our church. And with Jacob and Jamie leaving, and they've done so much for us, and we've been so grateful for everything they did over 5.5 years. But we now have this void of inside of our staff that we can now fill. We can look for different people to come in and just do some amazing things within our community. So again, one of the most exciting things we're doing is really going forward and seeking out candidates who could join our community here in Chesterfield and become a part of this Watermark Church going forward. And there's just a ton of opportunities for us to look in. And so I think one of the most challenging aspects is deciding what position this person fills. You know, what kinds of things do we want them to do? And we have such amazing volunteers here who pour their heart out into all their ministries. And so being able to find somebody who works along with those volunteers and can then enhance them, as well as building up new areas of ministry. And that's really our focus going into the next few months is finding these next people or persons to come in and really fill these roles that we talked about, both with the different things that Central Services was doing at our Warren campus, as well as some of the things Jamie was doing, and maybe some areas of ministry that we haven't had a staff person over yet. So we're just really excited over the next couple months to be able to listen to God, hear his voice, and hear his voice pour into us, so that we can then bring another person on and have this new life infused in these different areas of ministry, so we can go forward and do some amazing things and, again, leave our mark. So as a transition team, I know that's one of the things we're most excited about. We've put together all the processes and all the plans and how we're going to do this and all the nitty-gritty details. But I think the most important thing for everyone watching to understand is that we have this opportunity now to move forward and for God to pour out into new areas that we've never even considered reaching before. And so that's just one of the things that we're really, really excited for. So I think that's all I have to say, Laren. Is that good?
That's good. That's good. And so, I just got to tell you, so much prayer and has gone into moving us up to this point. I know so many from our Warren campus and even St. Clair Shores and our Chesterfield campus as well, and our team has been in prayer just because we know how important this next season is in the life of our church. And so I would covet your prayers over the next several months and beyond, just that you would continue to lift, I'll be selfish, lift me up in prayer, lift Derek up in prayer, lift our transition team up in prayer, because we know that we simply want God to guide every step of this process. That if God isn't in it, I don't want to move forward. If God isn't, working intimately in this process, then I think we're headed the wrong direction. And so we simply want to just trust God with these days ahead. All right, I did get a question, so let me answer that. The question was, will there be any connections with the Woods Church? There will certainly be a relational one. I mean, because there's been so much invested in our campus in the past. So the Warren campus, they're starting what is called the Presence-Driven Network. And so it's kind of a network of churches that are connected relationally, but yet we will have our own church board. Our finances are our finances in some ways. Like my dad said through this whole process, that now you get to grow up. And so I have certainly done that over the last few months and have more to go. But I'm the lead pastor of Watermark Church, and we have an incredible team that's come alongside of us in this transition team that's a little bit of a checks and balances. But other than that relational connection, there will not be any other type of connection, I guess, with the Woods Church. And so that's official on January 1st. There's a lot of things that are already in place, but official on January 1st. And so if anybody else has any more questions, don't hesitate to throw a couple out there. I just have a few things that I want to do before we close in the time of worship and prayer. So for the last few years, we've used the Church Center app to kind of handle our church business. That app, you can give. On our Church Center app, you can sign up for events, sign up for groups, and even this morning we used it so people could check in as they came in for the Sunday morning service. They, showed their app, and they were able to scan it and say, hey, you're here, you're good. So the Church Center app is so vital in moving forward, and many of you probably use the app, or you logged into Planning Center online. Those two things are connected. And so you've had a Church Center app login, you've had a Planning Center login, those things are connected. We're still using those, but we have to use them as Watermark Church now. And so I just kind of wanted to go through some of the basics of that. If you've used the app in the past or already have an account through the Church Center app or Planning Center, what you'll need to do is open up the app, and you can log out. And if you don't have the app yet, we'll kind of throw the graphic up there. Here's what the app looks like. If you use an Android, I feel sorry for you. But you can, if you're, using an Apple product, here's the Apple store that you can download that app, and you can go in and log in. And once you get the app, log in, or if you log out because you already have the app, then you can go to the next thing. And so as you'll see, if you've logged out, you can say, I want to log back into a new church. And there we are in the top left-hand corner as the new Woods Church Chesterfield name to be announced. So that'll change. Tomorrow, I think, it'll be Watermark Church. But you'll click on that. And then after you click on that, here's the next slide. This is what it looks like on your homepage. And so you'll see, obviously, it'll say Watermark at the top. But this app is really important moving forward, so I would encourage you, if you're watching online today, please download the app. If you already used it a little bit, you can log back out and log back in under Watermark Church. So we also have a new website. You can go check it out. Derek and I have our beautiful faces as the only staff on the website at this point, but we'll be adding to that. But if you just want to see, a very stylish picture of both of us, it might be worth your time. But our new web address is watermarkchurchmi.com. watermarkchurchmi.com. And so if you want to go check out the new webpage, we've got a little bit of work to do behind the scenes, but at least the landing page is there. You can give there. You can see the events that we have coming up there as well. And so that page will, in a lot of ways, mirror the Church Center app. And so that's that. And so if no more questions, everybody's okay, all hearts clear, what I want to do is I just want to close our time with just a time of worship and prayer. And so I'm going to invite Derek to join me on the stage as we just close this out. Just asking God to move in a powerful way in the future of our church, because I know God has done so much to lead us to this point, and so many have been involved, and so just thankful for what I know God is going to continue to do. So if you just prepare your hearts as we worship together, the words will be on the screen there as you're watching, but let's just worship him in the season as we take this next step in the life of Watermark Church.
I love you, Lord. Oh, your mercy never fails me. And all my days I've been held in your hands. From the moment that I wake up until I lay my head, and I will sing of the goodness of God. All my life you have been faithful. And all my life you have been so good. With every breath that I am able, oh, I will sing of the goodness of God. I love your voice. You have led me through the fire, the darkest night. You are close like no other. I've known you as a father. I've known you as a friend. And I have lived in the goodness of God. All my life you have been faithful. And all my life you have been so good. With every breath that I am able, oh, I will sing of the goodness of God. Your goodness is running after, it's running after me. Your goodness is running after, it's running after me. With my life laid down, I'm surrendered now. I give you everything. Your goodness is running after, it's running after me. Your goodness is running after, it's running after me. And your goodness is running after, it's running after me. With my life laid down, I'm surrendered now. I give you everything. Your goodness is running after, it's running after me. All my life you have been faithful. And all my life you have been so good. With every breath that I am able, oh, I will sing of the goodness of God. Can we sing that one more time? All my life. All my life you have been faithful. And all my life you have been so good. With every breath that I am able, oh, I will sing of the goodness of God.
Thanks, Derek. I just want to close with prayer. And as we pray, again, I cover your prayers for us as a staff, for our transition team. I ask that you pray just for God to continue to move the way he has in the past, for new partnerships, for ways that God can use us so that we can leave a mark. So that there is a defining mark left behind, like generations and generations that pass, that they'll know that there's a church at the corner of Baker and Washington that passionately love Jesus and yet passionately love our community as well. Because I know that that is what has defined us and what I want to continue to define us as we move forward. So just pray with me right now. One thing, if you were here, I'd ask you to do this. Do it wherever you're at. I don't care how weird it looks. Do it. Put your hands up. Just lift your hand up, and just as you're kind of reaching out, you're just asking God to move. Would you just put your hand up and pray with me right now in this moment? Dear Heavenly Father, God, you have been good. God, you have guided the steps of this church. God, you have been at work through this church in this community for decades. And so, God, I know that you want nothing more than just to see life abound. I know you want nothing more than to see your presence flow from this place into the neighborhoods, to the communities, to the homes, to the people that need you, so that life would flourish in those places. So God, I pray that you would guide our steps. God, I pray for wisdom. God, I pray that as we move forward, that as we gather together on Sunday mornings, whether in person or online, that your presence would be thick in this place. God, I pray just for an outpouring of your Spirit. God, I pray for the partnerships that we currently have, and I pray for what you want to do through us as we move forward. God, we want to see lives changed. We want to see dry, barren areas that someone said, oh, there's no life there. There's no way that'll work. There's no way that'll happen. But no, God, we want to see life abound and life flourish. God, we want to leave a mark as we've been marked by your presence. So God, tonight is kind of the first night as we move forward as Watermark Church. God, so I ask for your blessing. God, I ask for your power, your work in us and through us into the places that you'll take us. So God, we love you and we give you praise. Amen. Amen. I think we got one more question. All right. Let me check real quick. Someone asked if you can give us specifics on the staffing that we will, hold on, let me look at that one more time. Staffing that will be filled. No. And the only reason I say no is because we have several positions that, when it comes to youth and kids and maybe that executive type role and even communications and graphics, there's so many different positions. And so we're kind of moving forward and looking at how can we best make sure those areas are covered. And so we know that kids are important. We know that students are important. We know, hey, I need some help because I'm not the most organized person in the world. And so we need some help in those areas. So as we move forward, we'll be looking for those specific things to kind of help as we put together this staff of Watermark Church. And I did see that someone asked about some of the swag that we have, some of the merch that we have for Watermark. You can, sweatshirts, I think, are $500, right? For a donation of $500, we've got a sweatshirt. T-shirts are $250, and hats, I think they kind of rest about $100, I think. Just kidding. We're kind of in the beginning stages of that. Really, it's somebody, Derek's wife, Courtney, has a Cricut, and so we were just kind of having fun with a new graphic and putting some stuff together. But down the road, that will be something that we can have available for you, because I know many of you, you want to be cool like Derek and I are. I mean, I don't have mine on, but anyway, so there will be some of that as we move forward. Well, that's all we have for tonight, as long as there are no questions. I can't thank you for taking a few moments tonight and tuning in. And again, I'd ask for your prayers as we move forward. And I cannot wait for Sunday, next Sunday, November 29th, for you to walk into this place and we get to say for the first time, welcome to Watermark. So it's an exciting day. So thanks again for tuning in. Have a great week. We'll see you next Sunday. You're dismissed.